Hanji, welcome to another episode of our podcast, the Not in the Clouds podcast with Jawan Singh, Asa Singh, and Sadab Singh, myself. How's it going, guys? How was your week?
Yeah, it's really good. It was good to hear everybody's feedback, actually, just hearing everybody's thoughts on it. So, thank you for everybody that gave feedback. It gives us a lot of motivation to carry it on.
It's been really exciting as well. I know definitely we enjoyed recording it last week, but
Definitely, yeah.
will that translate?
It came across, a lot of people said, it was light-hearted, but it was also informative. And that's the kind of vibe we're going for. That's the kind of look we're going for. If anyone has any feedback or anything to give to us, hit us up on the Instagram, not in the clouds.podcast. Soon we should be on all streaming platforms too. So we should be on the Spotify, Apple podcast.
I know we're doing this remotely,
Yeah.
but I did prefer it when we were together. It feels like back in when we were during COVID time, being away from everybody. And that was a very anxious time for a lot of people. Not sure what's coming up in the future, but not being with you guys in the same space is it's a difference.
What
Definitely.
a segue, Asa. What a
Yeah,
segue. Honestly, you should be a professional podcaster.
Almost as if I planned it.
Almost, yeah. So, I think today's topic, we're going to talk about worry and what worries us, what gives us forms of anxiety, what is out of our control, essentially. So, it's something that we've been thinking about over the last week. Us, as mentioned, one of those big worries that we've been through as a whole community, really, is COVID. A lot of people passed away during that time. A lot of people had some long-term illnesses out of that. And, Joanne saying, we were talking about this last week, right? And even the government and the scaring when they, done their whole...
vaccine aspect, yeah.
There was a lot of unknowns with that vaccine. I remember when my dad was getting the second dose and we're waiting in the waiting area. Nothing better to do, so I started Googling. And I think my dad was getting AstraZeneca second dose. And as it happened, there was a news article about a lady who completely healthy her entire life, had got the vaccine, second dose, and then died of a brain hemorrhage. And I remember sitting there with my dad and reading this article to him, and the look on his face was precious. Why are you telling me this before I'm getting my second dose?
I think it's that roller coaster, isn't it? I remember. I don't know. Maybe if you do you remember where you was when this kind of started becoming like it was starting to be announced? It was a world pandemic.
I'd gotten married.
Yeah, you had just gotten married, and I had gone India to
you were
see you getting married, and it was crazy. Like I came back to the UK, and I went work one day, and the next day lockdown for 2 years.
Yeah.
So crazy roller coaster. My daddy got longer during that time.
My stomach got bigger during the COVID time. We were making cookies all the time, man.
A lot of people got into baking during
that's
the
true.
pandemic and lockdown, and there was a yeast shortage, there was a flour shortage.
I know.
It was
There was a
hiked up
shortage of
prices.
everything, isn't it? Yeah, like people just bulk buying things.
People taking advantage as well. There was a local shop down the road, a local Indian shop, and they'd hiked the price up of flour by 3 times, and they got reported for it.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, people taking advantage as well. It's funny how media actually was influencing everybody. Like when I reflect on it and seeing how what we see influences us and influences our decisions and what we do.
Yeah.
Like when I think back to it, even reflecting on myself, like you think, oh, would I have done that differently if it wasn't such a hysteria? Because speaking to people that weren't from the UK, like speaking to people from Panisaheb, like they were in Chardikala, like it didn't really make a difference to some people.
So you think that the media created that hype? So we were all sitting at home worried because we were literally sitting at home. We were pigeonholed, right? So we were just stuck in one room.
I think there's an element of that in the sense that there was a mass hysteria and how what other people are thinking about something, how that influences you, and maybe feeling that I need to think a certain way to fit in. And if I say something that is against the grain or not, that is the norm in terms of opinion.
Yeah.
Am I as it was coming across, that if you don't follow these rules, you're actually causing the deaths of other people.
Yeah.
I felt that was insane, like how everybody all of a sudden thought that death was in our control. Even when I was thinking that we're announcing daily how many people were dying, I think even if you did that right now, loads of people are dying daily. It's a part of life. If we announce that every day and associate it to a certain thing, I think you could create that hysteria again. I'm not saying it was fake. Obviously, a lot of people were dying as well. It's not. I'm not trying to downplay it, but if we reflect, I think it does have a massive influence on our emotions.
I think remembering death isn't a bad thing, though. Making sure that you know you're constantly, and I hate the English words of being in fear of death. It's not a fear, is it? It's not a fear because it's inevitable. It's the ultimate truth. So there's no way that that can be a fear. But what is it? What is death?
We put the question out to Instagram, didn't we? And one of the responses was that ultimately the truth is that our parents one day will pass away, and if we're lucky, we'll outlive them. But that's not a given, is it? We could die before them, but it's what do you think, Sarah? But I think it's the fear of the unknown and just not sure what's happening afterwards, or being so connected to what I have now that I'm not willing to let go of it.
Uncontrollable, isn't it? It's like now you're on a roller coaster. Now we all think we've got our safety harness on and we're going on the roller coaster and it's safe. This is really safe. We're going down, we're going down. You don't know if that's going to come off. You don't know. But you trust it. I think in the same way we should trust that, we've got this safety harness on of this global power, this divine power, and hold on to that.
Reading a quote on Twitter that you relax on a plane even though you don't know who the pilot is. You relax on a ship even though you don't know who the captain is.
Yeah.
You relax on the bus even though you don't know who the driver is. So why don't you relax in life?
Yeah. I think the way we can relate it is this acceptance that there's these certain truths, and how do I remain happy, regardless of these truths? And I think Guru Nanak Dev Ji kind of encapsulates it perfectly. There's a talk that says, "Pehla maran kabul, जीवन की छाड़ आस, हो सबना की रहन का, तो आओ हमारे पास." Meaning, first accept that death is inevitable. Forget your hopes, or the hopes that you've attached to living, or the hopes you've attached to tomorrow. Become humble and then come to me. And I think it's kind of encapsulating the Stoics, really, of that being a route to understanding another angle to ourselves, understanding something bigger than ourselves.
It's that ego, isn't it? Essentially, that I exist. I feel like I exist. I think this Maya and the kale, the drama that's wrapped around us is so believable, especially now that we can see things like films like Avatar and, all of these films. It just makes us believe that we exist. Do we exist?
We mentioned Sant Satnam Singh Ji last week. I think probably throughout all of these podcasts, I'll mention them quite a bit. We got to learn a lot from them.
Yeah.
And they used to say, like, we used to always talk to them that, there's always these thoughts, like these intrusive thoughts that are always worrying us. Like, why am I having these thoughts? Like, I'm making this effort to, quote unquote, clean my mind. And why are these thoughts still troubling me? And they said, it's because you associate yourself to those thoughts. And if you imagine those thoughts as waves, you're riding those waves all the time. Just let them pass.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing for me, like just realizing, you can not dwell on that thought and just let it pass, like, and not be so nitpicky on, why did this thought come? What caused the thought? How do I then move forward to actually removing that thought coming again? We dwell so much on it, and I think that even causes us more anxiety, I think, most of the time.
There was a really great Netflix meditation series called Headspace, Guide to Meditation. And it's about this guy called Alex who has left his house in America and he's gone to, I think, China to learn from the Buddhists. And he puts it, the way that he learned it, imagine you're sitting on the side of a road and you see cars passing by. Each car that passes by is a thought. Now, your job is to just sit on the side of the road. It's not to walk into the middle of the road and cause a car crash. If you feel like one of those cars is pulling you in, then take a step back, breathe, and just go back to sitting.
I think these are some of the solutions, and being honest, there's certain things that have helped me a lot, but I don't think I've achieved maybe the ultimate goal of becoming completely carefree.
Growing up was appearances, right? So we talked about swimming pools, and I think Asa, we both had a swimming pool incident. Mine was more so that I was great at swimming. I was great in the pool. Coming out, it's like, okay, now what do I do with my hair? What do I do with my gears? Because we got to get to school in 20 minutes, and the whole school's got to get ready. Everyone else just got to pat themselves dry, put their clothes on, and then walk out. And I've got to tie my wet hair up, and I've got to do all this. And I'm one of those people that like to be on time. I mean, I know today's setup was really bad. Oh my god, today's setup, I took 20 minutes, and that for me is shameful because it just didn't want
Still
to work.
better than many, I think. But my one was similar in that I'm not proud of I was insecure about my hairline as a kid, namely because it looks like I've got a McDonald's logo on it. It's
Anything, they know what we're talking about. This might be a foreign concept to some people, but most things know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I know this not because as a kid, I always to my mum it was like, "Kids game on, no do that. I don't want it. I don't want it coming loose. I'm playing football today. There's PE today, right? I don't want it flopping around because that's even worse."
Oh man!
So when we used to go swimming, I used to be the first one out of that swimming pool, just so I could be the first one in there, not have anybody looking at my hairline. Quickly dry it, and then that's from there is when now I can tie my at the start in 2 minutes flat.
Those were little worries. I mean, they then
they
manifested into and how do we control that? How did you control that?
I think I stopped caring. It got to a point. It got
But
to a
how?
point where it got to a point where I was like, "There's no way I'm going to fix my hairline. I might as well start worrying about it." Because there was a time when I realized, through such a passage goodbye, actually, through the Updesh, that on this earth, we are so limited in the sense that the number of breaths that we have, there's a finite amount of breaths, and each breath is a precious jewel. You can choose to waste it on worrying about what are people going to think about my hairline. And it goes back to your point, Juan, about giving other people power over you. Why do I care if somebody thinks that I've got a McDonald's logo on my head? If anything, let's make a joke out of it. We can both laugh about it.
I think there's an element that as you grow older, when we're growing up, I think we've all grown up in like Punjabi families, Sikh families, and this element of Sikhi has always been around us, right? I think people having long hair, having a dastar hasn't really been foreign to us in that sense. And I think as you get older, when you're younger, it's because you've been told. And for me personally, I think it's as you get older that you care about appearances because we've grown up in a certain culture, right? And that culture has certain expectations on you, or you feel those expectations. Truly, those expectations aren't really there, but you care about what your peers think about you. Let's be honest, like that's a massive thing for you when you're growing up, especially when you're a teenager. But then when you start learning, okay, what is the reason actually why we keep our hair? What is the history behind it? I don't know if it was for you, but I felt that there was it gave me this power that was bigger than me.
Definitely.
That actually knowing why we do it.
What do you mean by that? Explain that. Open that up a bit more.
So, like when we start reading about Bhai Taru Singh, Bhai Mani Singh, Shahid Uday Singh ji, like Charlie Mukte, like when we even Jar Sahibzade, like when we read about that history, and like under no circumstances would they ever let anybody change their convictions, and they were rebellious to the point of giving their lives for that conviction, for something that they considered bigger than themselves. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about last time about that love of, we have our love for our guru, we have our love for our culture, and we want to save it.
More recently, I've had issues with relating that to like modern life. Like, that's cool. That happened in the 16th, 17th, 18th century. We're now in 2023. We've got
2024.
People have 20. Oh yeah, oh my god.
Actually, no, not yet. April, isn't it? That's the new year. Sorry,
yeah,
sir.
April.
For us, yeah. Right. But that's the 20, I think 70 something at this point, or 2080 something.
Yeah, but how is that relatable to us now? Because now we haven't got the Mughals on our back, right? I mean, there is a few restaurants in Birmingham called the Mughal or whatever it is. Ooh, was that bubbles? But I find that difficult to relate that, because it's cool. I get it. All that history stuff is there, but me in 2024, who walks down the road, and we go to the shop, pick up a Twix, and we're eating it. It's like that hasn't had that impact. Almost what had an impact to me was, we have our music had a lot of impact on me. So music, being in kirtan, being and listening to Gurbani and things like that. But the stories of the Sikh had an impact. The Sikh history had an impact on me, but it wasn't like you're saying, like that staunchness.
No, I think it does come to a point where you want to experience it yourself. But I think that's where sometimes I've noticed this quite a lot, and I experienced it myself, where you feel like you've been born in the wrong century, where you connect so much with that history,
Yeah.
and you want to emulate it so much, but there's a mismatch in terms of, like, right now I've got a smartphone, I'm talking in front of a laptop and a microphone.
What was your connection then through music?
Yeah.
How did that
I think
influence you into keeping your Perava and your Dastar? And
Sikhi wise, it was always, as a young kid, I didn't grow up Namtari, right? As you guys know. So I grew up in a normal mainstream society, went to the Gurdwara on a Sunday. I mean, we had things like Asa Diwar, so I've always been playing tabla in Asa Diwar, and I think that was the kitsch, that was the pull into the society. But what I saw in Southall specifically is that the Gurdwara that we have in Southall, it's nobody, we don't have like a Granthi or a Gyani. There was always your average Joe, and they were participating, and it gave me a sense of community rather than the sense of Sikhi. Sikhi came later on, well, such Bashiji's Darshan, you then have that aspect, but it was that sense of community. And I think that in 2024, um, living in the UK, you need someone who looks like you, sounds like you, and is doing other, and is also being a global person, meaning they're in jobs, they're in other communities. Like now, I say, if you go to a badminton club, they're not all going to necessarily look like you, but you interact with them. But
yeah,
your base, your home is always the community, always the Gurdwara,
that
and you're
commonality.
representing.
Yeah.
And
So
that's what I like.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I like the way you've put that, actually, that seeing other people tackle this 2024 world, or this 20th century, 21st century,
Yeah.
seeing them tackle it, but also maintaining this sense of, I guess, a sense of rebellion, right? Of not wanting to fit in, but also fitting in at the same time.
Yeah.
I've always found that inspiring. Like, I remember when I was like reading about Sikh history, and there was this want in my heart that, I don't want to. I want to wear Pehrava now. I want to stay in Bara. And everybody kept saying to me, "Oh, you won't be able to get a job like that."
Yeah.
And I remember actually speaking to Asapadi, that I said, "Oh, I really want to stay in Pehrava, but I'm not sure. Like, if I apply for jobs, do you think they'll say something, or like, what's your views on it?" And yeah, I don't know if you remember this, Asa, if you remember this conversation. You just said straight up, "What are they going to say?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right. What are they going to say? Like, what's the worst they could say to me?" And just that one sentence of somebody who was similar age to me, somebody that I felt that had more experience than me in that, and them giving you that motivation. I think Baji, you hit the nail on the head. I really like the way you put that, in terms of,
I'll be
you
honest.
need people around you that you
Yeah.
can connect to.
I'll be honest. So reflecting on myself as to why I started wearing bana, and it was an update from Sadhguru Pratap Singh Ji. You know which one is it?
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
Don't can I mute the speaker, just because then it's going to apply to me.
No.
I wasn't the most sensible kid. Kafi sharati. I was quite naughty, and I remember hearing Sadhguru Pratap Singh Ji saying, "Ko kyo bana paya karo." Ki pata hai, aisi play ke tusi bakshe jaonge. I was like, that's it, sick. It's an
Yeah, I
easy
got the
bakshish.
shortcut.
Yeah, that's an easy bakshish for me. There's another one where, so one of my insecurity, I can't really call it an insecurity, but it was a worry as a kid. I always wanted to be a part of the Haven. Again, going back to that community thing, like for you,
Part
it
of the
was
heaven or the what did you want to
become the coconut. Become the
today,
coconut.
today I'm a heaven.
Oh, man.
It was the little dance that got me.
I'm going to give the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah, I wanted to be part of the team, and so at the time, maybe 12, 13, I didn't have mucha daria, have a dari, so that was one of the rules, and that you had to, like, if you wanted to play tabla, for example, you had to be in like kurta pajama or like whatever, Hana. For a haven, to be sitting as a party or do like jalda chitta was like your first role that you get in it. You see that flame going
stuff
up.
on the basics.
Yeah. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to make the fire big, but you needed hair, facial hair. Didn't have that, so I had to wait. Yeah, but that was a worry at the time. I was like, oh
Could you
man,
use
when is it going to come?
mascara?
Yeah, fake it till you make it. But yeah, there was loads of like that. What happened with you guys? Did Mucha come first or Dari?
Oh, mate, don't even start with that subject, man. We were talking about Mughals, yeah. I fully looked like a Mughal until I was 21.
I swear.
My mucha only came at like 21, 22. It was horrendous.
Wow.
I had I had a dardi. I had this much dardi, like this much.
We need to get a picture. Did you get a picture? We need to show.
Please.
We need to get a picture on.
That's trauma. That is that. If you're going to talk about anxiety and worry, not having mucha was one of mine. I got a question for both of you.
Yeah.
What is a respectable age to start tying your jura?
Oh, this is a good question.
So I want to shout out my jura guru, the guy who taught me how to do a jura. It's Googs from Birmingham. Throughout my secondary school journey, I never went on any field trips, any school trips. I'm always missed out.
Yeah, same.
And the reason was because I couldn't do my jura, and doing ishnan every single morning, and not opening your hair so you can get water in there. Leaving a jura for a week is mad, isn't it? So, so it was always that. Sorry, guys, I can't do my jura. So I hold a very special place in my heart for Googs for teaching me how to do a jura, because it gave me my independence.
But how old were you though? How old were you?
14, I think. That's
quite late. I think that's late. I was even more later, but yeah, I think I was like nearly 18. I think.
Oh really?
Yeah, I was late.
How can you sit in front of your mum and say, "Mum"?
Maybe it was a little bit earlier. Now I'm thinking 18. That sounds a bit mad.
I started tying my pug at the age of like 11. I think. Ooh, and nice. Yeah, so as in like I've had to tie a juda from there, and then you can go out and it was a trip as well. It was that that year 5, year 6 trip, which got me getting my hair done.
I remember there were some things, and we were never allowed to do that, but there were some things that they would go with one like got, and the got they would protect that got with their whole life. It would be a week, and that got used to stay solid.
Actually, shout out to one of my I don't know whether she's a teacher or whatever, but she used to be in the medical room. And her name was Mrs. God, yeah? So when at this is in primary school, your jura used to go tilla, used to be standing there like, okay, what do I do now? You'd go to Mrs. God and she'd like kaske do your jura, and it would be like, it's good. This is that sense of community as well. I grew up in like Greenford, Southall, that sort of area. Yeah. And they needed that was probably in a job description. You must be able to tie.
You need to do these things, jura. I remember I had none of that. I was in the primary school with just a bunch of white people.
Yeah.
And that had its own problems. Like, I remember my juda used to go loose sometimes. And bless them, the white teachers used to try and tie it. And I still have vivid memories of my mum coming to collect me. Yeah. And the shock on her face, like seeing how they have attempted to do my juda.
Oh, man, that's brought up a memory for me. Year 5 memory, John. And it was I had a fear as a kid that, because I was one of the Ramali wala things in it back in year 5, and my mum was like, really pushing me to start wearing a pug to school. And the Jilos, situation good one. I got the confidence to wear a pug, and it wasn't like the neatest thing in the world because I couldn't do my pug at that point, so it's my mum doing it. So it wasn't neat. I went into school, and in the morning when they do the register, I can't remember. I think it was Mrs. Rochester, and she looks at me. She's like, Asa. She looks at me and she's like, "Are you feeling all right today?" And I realized afterwards why she asked that question. So
You got
you've got
bandage on your head.
Oh no! Oh, I didn't connect it.
yeah, genuinely, she was like,
Is that what she
"You're
thought?
right." Yeah, fully. There can't be any other reason why. Like one day out of nowhere, she's like, "You feeling all right today?"
Yeah. Talking about anxiety, actually, my dad told me a story. Do you know when 9/11 happened?
Yeah.
There was this whole thing, especially with Namtaris, like there was like visually, obviously, and for anybody that doesn't know, obviously Bin Laden, he's got this white turban, white clothes, so everybody was making that visual connection.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a time where like prejudice and those things were kind of on the rise. Obviously, I was too young at that time, and my dad would say, like, when we would sit on a train, you'd think it's rush hour. Like, why is there nobody around me? Like, why is my carriage empty?
Yeah.
And like Bidaji was saying, that, that's when we realized that people are not comfortable around us. Like, we would look in each carriage on each side of us, and they would be packed, and the one we would be in would be more or less empty.
Social media has such a power on us, and it can have a positive power. Like, you can scroll through Instagram and you see pictures of such Bashaji, and that has positive impact on you, but it can have a massive negative impact on you. You can see somebody and say, "Oh, ona de wo ho gaya," or they've done this, or they've had a party, and I want to go there, or they've worn this and they're wearing these trainers, or something like that. You've always ready to compare yourself to other people on social media, and that's just the nature of social media. That's nothing to do with us as people. If you put us in a room together, we'll probably all get on.
We'll find
But
commonality, a common ground.
Yeah, this social media really hinders that relationship.
There was something that Joanne mentioned about social media, and it's so true because the algorithm behind a lot of how these social media sites work is it becomes an echo chamber. So if you're into a certain topic or you've been searching about a certain thing, it'll feed that back to you, and that becomes your reality for 3 hours a day, where you're like
actually telling people that and teaching. I think that awareness, even sometimes with even our generation who've kind of grown up and seen this technology boom, I think even sometimes we're not aware of how it's influencing the way we think.
Yeah.
Like, we're sitting there and telling our parents, "Oh, don't believe all of these group thread of WhatsApp messages telling
Good
you to
morning.
put good morning, cut an onion in half and put it in the corner if you don't want to die from COVID." All that kind of stuff. You remember, like, this is the kind of stuff that was being sent around.
This is actually a book that I was reading the other day by I'm looking at the book now, Johan Hari. His name is Johan Hari, and it's called Stolen Focus. And he talks about how all these devices are taking you away from, for what I feel, if I'll give it a Punjabi word, again, language, Joan Singh, we always talk about this, the mool, your mool. What is your mool?
What does mool mean?
Mool is exactly ikagai. That's exactly what it is. And that foundationary belief. And Saj Pachaji always comes back to Nam, always comes back to these things, but why? I think for me, it's the grounding factor is that brings you back to equilibrium. And I think this all social media, whatever it is, including WhatsApp, and I know we had a conversation about this where we were saying, someone we know is off social media, even WhatsApp, because of, there's so many forwards that are coming through.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, you get storage anxiety because you get so many people sending you videos and photos, the same video, right? I've got no space left.
I think it's desensitized us in a sense. Like, to be honest, like, this is when I was learning about Gurbani and history. One of my first kind of reactions to this was deleting a lot of my social media. Not that I didn't want to be social, I wanted to be antisocial. Actually, I love speaking to different people. I do really actually enjoy it. But I just felt that it was it's like a curated version of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Social media. And I think it's desensitized ourselves to
Yeah.
the extent that, like, the amount of crazy stuff that is out there online now, which you can read about in terms of bad news, people getting shot. Like, imagine that, like, now, seeing somebody get shot, you would, like, before social media, that is something
Yeah.
somebody could probably go their whole life and not having to see that. And this is something, scrolling through social media, you're seeing it every day.
I think,
That
yeah.
must have
So
an effect on your mind, right? And I think, like, real life examples do differ from that. Like, talking about a personal experience, when I was about, I think, 8, 9 years old, somebody who had a big influence on me, my nanaji. They were somebody that through cancer, through illness, they were chardikala all the time. They never missed waking up 2 a.m. Like, no matter what, no matter how ill they were, they maintained that. And I always found that inspirational. Even being around them, they had this kind of aura about them.
I think what Juan Singh touched upon in another light, okay, your mool is one thing. And one thing that we might want to touch upon on later podcasts is your connection with your elders. Because I think all of us have had different connections with, different people who may be older than us, maybe in our peer group. And we've had some nudges along the way, definitely.
there was
Yeah.
so Juan mentioned Satnam Singh Rihal,
Yeah.
and I remember there's been, like, from my immediate, they're not immediate family, but there have been people from my immediate family, elders, who have passed away, and I've not been as close to them as I felt with Satnam Singh Rihal. I remember when they passed away, um, feeling an emotional hit, feeling a bit of an emptiness, and there was a shabad that quite nicely encapsulated how I felt at the time. It was Sang chalata hai, hum bhi chalna. Ki my friends have gone, and one day I will go as well. And it's that, repetition of that realization. Ki, yeah, I'm not here for a permanent amount of time. I'm here temporarily, and like you say, let's do something with that time.
Talking about temporarily, have you heard the kirtan at a funeral or around funeral times or when you go to the
Oh
house?
yeah, yeah,
Do
That's a
you
good feeling, yeah.
it's a different hit, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Well, you've sat there. What have you felt in that? Like,
Yeah.
what do you feel?
So my most vivid memory, and I was about maybe 17 years old at this point, and I think it was Subhajit Dar Singh who had passed away, and just the kirtan when his physical body came into the room, and then the kirtan that was happening, and I don't know what the feeling was, but the kirtan was something different. It was like the vibrations in the room were crazy. It was just, but if
Like,
they're singing,
yeah.
if they're singing things like "Sanga Chalate Hai Hum Pi Chalna," and they're singing it, in sur with the tal
Oh
there,
man,
and
it's
it just,
Yeah,
it,
it
I
has
mean,
that
just
feeling.
talking about it
there's
brings
a
back that
Yeah,
memory.
there's a recording
Yeah,
of Bali
100%.
and the Birmingham Jathar singing that shabad, and they emphasize um, like one line over and over again, and
Yeah.
the depth that you feel then, and that connection that you feel with that line, then it's just so much more powerful than if you just read it, you know.
Yeah.
But
There's
yeah,
an old recording of Sandarshan Singh Ji singing. I mean, a shabad that we hear all the time, Har Charan Saran Gobind Tuk Panjana. That's fine. We hear that line all the time. But the focus that they had is the next line. What's the next line? Das apne ko naam deo. And that's what, and they're continually saying that. And the feeling of
oh,
that
kya baat hai.
kirtan, just because they've put the emphasis on the second line rather than the first line that reet we've heard millions of times, right? But just singing Das, apne do naam deo.
Yeah,
Do
100%.
nothing.
I think Master Darshan Singh Ji said something similar. Was that anybody that doesn't know, Master Darshan Singh Ji was somebody that was essentially a scholar of the Sri Yad Guru Granth Sahib, Sri Dasan Guru Granth Sahib, of history, and he said to somebody one time that one thing I've realized now is, if one thing has given me sukh, if one thing has given me happiness in this life, it has been this Gurbani. And yeah, it's that, it goes back to that point. It's like going full circle, I think, but it's that ikigai. Yeah,
But you don't
100%.
need to understand all of Gurbani. I mean,
Oh,
nobody
100%.
does.
Yeah, no.
I think what we're trying to say is, you just take one line and
That's
whatever
it.
that line is and focus on it for a month. Focus on it for 2 months. It doesn't I'm not saying that you need to become a professional Gurbani reader or whatever that is, but
Yeah.
I think you just take one line and just see how that applies to your life.
does worries stop us from actually getting things done? Does it stop progress?
Yeah, procrastination. We said this, right? So, some people have issues where they need to have something perfect. So something needs to be perfect. So, I'm going to do this, and everything needs to fall in line. And if the first hurdle, you don't get past the first hurdle, you just think, oh, it's not going to be perfect. So what's the point doing it? We've had this conversation, Joanne Singh, before,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 100%.
And I
Yeah.
think it's that is an issue in itself. Whereas, some people I work with as well, it's phenomenal. They just be like, we'll give it a shot, we'll give it a try, let's just crack it on, and they do it, and something happens. They just it's that agile approach again, isn't it? I say we were talking
But
about.
there's like some people don't understand that either. That they can't
Yeah,
come to
yeah.
terms with how are you so non. How do you not worry about a project being delivered on time, or how are you not worried that like you get a defect or you get a problem where you're like, it's a P1, like it's blocking
Yeah.
production, like it's the end of the world, and then you're like, it's not the end of the world.
It's common, I think,
Yeah.
I think I was dwelling on the word mastana.
Mm.
And mastana within us is quite a positive term, but in general, it's a derogatory term, right? It's that saying that you've gone crazy. Those people that don't think along those lines, that they don't let worries get them down, they don't let worries hinder their progress on anything.
Yeah.
Those people do end up being known as crazy, right?
But it's
um,
again, it's that thing about in Gurbani, "Main Bauri Mera Ram Patar." I'm
Mm.
crazy because I've accepted that my husband, my Lord, my husband is my Lord, the Almighty, the one who created the universe. So if that's the devotional love and that's the angle of Sikh philosophy, then there's nothing to worry about because ultimately he's in control.
I think we get so attached to this illusion. I think we was talking
Mm,
about
it's true.
like the financial aspect as well,
Yeah.
and I think in Gurbani that's mentioned as well. Vadde vadde jodi sahelo,
Mm.
tinko byape chintaro. Like I think Sachibai mentions this a lot actually. That those people that you look up to, do you think that they're like they're free from worries? And then I think there's that angle there. Okay, are they worth you looking up to them then? Because like what are we trying to get, where are we trying to get to?
It's the illusion factor, right? So if you take a Ferrero Rocher,
Hmm.
yeah, you have a look at a Ferrero Rocher. It looks nice in that gold wrapper, doesn't it? But you don't eat the gold wrapper. You take the gold wrapper off, and the actual chocolate that's inside. That's what you eat, right? And what is that? The wrapper is that illusion.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a funny one. There's one I would relate it to. I think Jetheth and Nashar Singh ji from Delhi. They're coming actually in a couple of days. I was listening to one of their divans, and it made me laugh. But it's very true as well. I don't know if you've noticed it, but they're in a lot of cars, not here, but in India. You get a lot of people. They write on their "Eh pe daat, teri daatar," है ना? This is your what you've given, and obviously they're referring to the car, right?
yeah,
That you have given me this. But he was saying nobody reads the line that comes before that, which is "Ketea du kupuk sadamar," and the translation of that is so many endure like distress, this pain,
Depression, suffering.
suffering. But then Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying that this is also one of your gifts to me.
yeah.
It's
And
that
Jetheth
perspective,
actually
isn't it?
saying like I don't know how many people know that that's the line before and if they would accept it or not. But yeah, that hit that hit home for me definitely. That we do a lot of talking, but when it comes to it, there's certain moments where all of this talking kind of it comes to fruition. Even happens to Pai Gurdas ji,
Oh,
right?
mate. Yeah.
Like Pai Gurdas ji, even when they're tested, even they can't succeed, and they're one of the most knowledgeable, one of the biggest Vidwans that we've ever had. There was a Sakhi I was listening to. Somebody I actually really like listening to is Sant Vadde Mahapurush Sant Gurbachan Singh Ji. And I was listening to them, and they were telling a story from Guru Gobind Singh Ji's time about somebody called Pai Malyagar Singh. And it says in there that there's one day where Guru Gobind Singh Ji is saying there's not going to be any langar today. And I want to see how you serve each other. And at that time, there's a lot of Singhs with Sachi Pashaji, and there's loads of different types of Singhs. So some are poor, some are rich. So obviously, the people that are like Jimidar, they've taken like 5-6 people, and all the other people, they've taken as many people as they could. And there's one Sikh, and unfortunately, like from financial perspective, he was poor. And one of the other Jimidar Sikh, like kind of forcingly, said to another Sikh, "You go with Paimali Singh. You go with him," in a macaul kind of way, in a way that, oh, when they come back, he's going to get embarrassed that he's not being able to give anything. So they've come back, and Guru Gobind Singh Ji asks all the Sikhs, "So what have you eaten?" So somebody says, "Oh, I've had lassi." Somebody saying, "I've had pronte." Somebody saying they had laddua, mithiyan cheejan shak ke aaya. And Guru Gobind Singh Ji asked by Malayagal Singh, "What have you had?" And he says, "Main amrit shak ke aaya." It's like, I've eaten something that is of the ultimate bliss, of the ultimate nectar. And the people that were trying to embarrass the other Sikh were saying, "What are you talking about? That Sikh, he hasn't even got any money." And Guru Gobind Singh Ji asked by Malayagal Singh that, "What are you keeping a secret from me?" They're saying that he didn't have anything to give you. And Bhai Malayagra Singh says, "Ask the Sikh that gave me what he gave me," right? So Sachiba asked that Sikh, and they say, "Sachiba, forgive me. The only thing I could give them was a cold bata of water." And Guru Gobind Singh Ji says, "Bhai Malayagra Singh, is that true?" And he says, "No, he's not telling you the full story." And he's saying that he's been saving this meva of a certain kind, I've forgotten the name, and he's been putting that into water and letting the flavor of that seep into the water.
Yeah.
And I've given that to Bhai Malayagar Singh because it's something that I had been doing. And Sadhguruji at that point says, "Sati de santokhi khahe." The giver should be truthful, and the person eating should be santoki, meaning they should be content.
Yeah.
Right. Something that I thought was amazing, like just listening to it. Yeah.
We've been talking for quite a while now. It's been fun, even though we're not in
Are
person.
we not doing the fun bit?
We are going to do this fun bit. Let me just wrap the serious bit up. Come on.
I'm excited for my documentary.
But just like, this is the whole bit I've been waiting for.
Yeah.
I mean, we've just been talking about all this stuff. This is what I've been waiting for.
Right. So I say.
No, I went first last time.
No, you're going to go first this time, is that because you're so eager?
Okay.
So what did you learn this week?
It's another nature fact.
Is it a TikTok one? 30 seconds.
No,
TikTok
this one
documentary.
It wasn't a TikTok documentary, but it was a BBC documentary. I think it was Natural Planet or something. So yeah, birds are quite common. They lay their eggs, so they don't have to worry about being a parent. Let somebody else do it, right? But so there's a fish that lays eggs, and it nurtures its brood, so the bunch of eggs that it's laid, in its mouth for protection, right? And the mocha kid catfish will take advantage of that fact and it will lay its own eggs alongside this this other fish that broods its eggs in the mouth, right? It's babies. Now, naturally, the catfish eggs will hatch first, right? And again, this just blows my mind because this whole process through evolution or whatever, right, has come about through this way that the catfish eggs will hatch first, and they hatch in the mouth of the fish, and they will start to eat the OG babies, like the ones that the mum laid, and the mum will realize that something's happening in her mouth and spit them all out, and she can't differentiate between who are her kids and who aren't her kids, and she will raise those catfish babies as her own.
Wow.
Without any differentiation.
On the opposite side of that scale, did you know crows hold grudges?
No way.
They're some egotistical birds, man. They hold grudges. They're incredibly intelligent. So they will remember if someone's picked at them or somebody's taken their food or something. Oh, wow. They will hold a grudge.
How did we figure this out?
There's this like from observation?
Yeah, it's from observation. Researchers have observed crows reacting aggressively to people who previously posed a threat to them. So if something's posed a threat to them,
Wow.
they will hold a grudge.
So last week we was talking about different lucky numbers.
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law was telling me that we was talking about the number 13, and we was like noticing how globally is considered quite an unlucky number.
Yeah.
But for us, because of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, it's considered quite like a very like it's lucky. It's a number that has some like
Positive
history
connotations.
there. Yeah, positive connotation. And he was saying that actually, when you were talking about that, it reminded me of my childhood. That there's this known thing that when you buy a corn within the leaves. He was telling me that the leaves have lines on them.
Challi. You're talking about
Chalina. Yeah,
Challi.
Chalina.
Yeah.
That the leaves on there before you peel it have lines on them.
Yep.
And he says you'll always be able to find ones with 12, 14, even above 14.
Yeah.
But you can never find one that had 13. And there was always, when they were younger, they was always trying to find one that had 13 lines. And he says it was a known thing that if it has 13 lines, it will be really sweet.
Yeah.
And he says he found one that had 13 when he was younger, and it was the sweetest chili that he had ever eaten.
Interesting.
So, yeah, relating it to that. And another thing,
your brother-in-law has always got something like fruity or nutty going
on.
The other day, I was like, how do I crack this coconut? Because it was that gumbada coconut. And somebody tasked me with cracking it, and I was like, I ain't got a clue. And he goes, give it to me. It's got a screwdriver, and he's like, this is the face. This is how you crack it. I'm like, wow, man.
Yeah,
knowledgeable guy, man.
Yeah. And if anybody wants something to read, reading recommendations. One was this. Oh, it's going to be like opposite, right? This was a good book. Yeah, Meditations. This was good because in this episode we were talking about Stoics and stuff. This is definitely a good one. Definitely like has a lot of like similarities to what Guru Nanak Dev Ji is telling us.
Yeah.
And then in the previous episode we were talking about this book. So this is Guru Chetan.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one's in Gurmukhi, so maybe not accessible to anybody, but maybe something we should be doing in terms of translating it. But
yeah. My recommended read is Johan Hari, Stolen Focus. That should give you more awareness around social media.
If we're all doing book recommendations, I've got one as well. I always found it funny how in Chandi Diwar, in the Devta comes to Durga with like all of his problems and like I've lost my kingdom, I've lost everything, and Durga Mata is like Durga Ban, and the way Sadhguru Gobind Singh Ji like composes it, Durga Ban's from the Hasi Had Hadai, that she had all these problems, she started laughing. So don't worry, I got it.
He was so worried that he couldn't even let Chandi finish doing her Ishnan. He's so worried about his own worries that it says Ik dahade navanai Durga. Like he's not even letting her finish her doing her Ishnan.
Yeah.
And Chandi's saying, yeah, calm down, I'll sort it out for you.
Yeah, chill out. So my book recommendation is Chandi Diwar.
Nice, cool. Thank you very much, guys. It's another episode wrapped up, and hopefully this should become weekly now. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.